بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
With regards to praying at home, then from the sunnahs of the Eid prayer is prior to the Eid prayer, one should first of all bathe, perform ghusl, have a bath and purify himself, adorn himself, perfume and new clothes. And also one should have breakfast, or at the very least have some dates to show that he's not fasting on this significant day of Eid, in which of course fasting isn't permissible. And also the takbirat of Eid. Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Walillahi alhamd. These are some of the sunan of the day of Eid. And these can be done, of course, or should be done before the Eid prayer. Then when the Eid prayer is commenced, and the Eid prayer should start after the Fajr Salah, once the sun has risen and once the shadow is more than an arm's length, and it can be performed from then up until before the Dhuhr prayer begins. The Eid prayer, as we know, is unique in the sense that we have takbirat at the beginning of the prayer more than we have in the normal salawat. And so for the Eid prayer, the sunnah is when the Eid prayer begins, the first rak'ah, an individual, he'll begin the first rak'ah by making 8 takbirat altogether, including the first takbir. So 8 takbirat in the first rak'ah. After this, he can either recite Surah Qaf or he can recite Surah Al-A'la. And this is in the first rak'ah. And if he's unable to recite these surahs, he can recite any surah he wishes, inshallah. In the second rak'ah, he makes 5 takbirat as opposed to 8 takbirat in the first rak'ah. And then after he recites Surah Fatiha, he recites either Surah Qamar or Surah Al-Ghashiyah. And again, if he isn't able to recite any of these surahs, maybe because he hasn't memorized these surahs, he can recite any surah from the Quran that he wishes. And then he finishes the salah as he would normally finish the salah, and this is basically the end of the Eid prayer. With regards to praying in the masajid, as we know, due to the pandemic, based on the principle of hifdhun nafs, preserving life in Islam, it's not something which is going to be encouraged. In fact, it may be harmful and forbidden for a person to pray in the masajid if there's a risk of him causing harm to himself or to others, if someone is affected with this virus that's been plaguing us for the last few months. So based on this, the scholars have differed with regards to whether or not somebody can pray the Eid prayer at home. Some of the scholars, like the Ahnaf and others, they said that the Eid prayer is only something which is done with a single imam if the prayer is missed, or if there isn't a prayer taking place out in public in an open area, then the salah is something which can't be done in one's home. However, other scholars, and this seems to be the majority opinion, is that you can pray the Eid prayer in your own homes. And from the evidences that they mention regarding why this is permissible is because of the hadith of Anas radiallahu an, when in one of the years in which he missed the Eid prayer, he prayed the Eid prayer at home with his family members. And so based on this, the scholars, they say it is permissible for a person to pray the Eid prayer at home if, for whatever reason, he's unable to pray the congregational Eid prayer in public with the rest of the Muslim community. And of course, because of the situation that we're in today, it's only more appropriate for us to ensure that we exemplify and show those things which identify us as Muslims and identify us with the Islamic faith, such as the right of performing the Eid prayer, something which is done in public, something which when it's done, people recognize that is from the rights of Islam and the Muslims. And on top of this, the fact that we want to be able to have some sense of normalcy as much as we possibly can, and praying the Eid prayer at home will inshallah ensure that there is something that's still done similar to what we normally do on the days of Eid in the past. And of course, due to the unique circumstances that we're in, Normally we would be visiting our family members, our relatives, our friends, our neighbors. But of course, in order to preserve life, in order not to cause harm to others as a result of this pandemic, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِيَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ, don't use your own hands to destroy yourselves. We wouldn't encourage or recommend anyone visiting family members or friends or relatives. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He accepts all of our efforts and all of our acts of worship in the blessed month of Ramadan, and that we all have a blessed Eid. تقبل الله منا ومنكم صالح الأعمال والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم